BlackRock and the ruling elites want to control everything. So if you ask yourself, why are they getting involved in cryptocurrency, something that they're not supposed to be able to control? Well, in this video, Whitney Webb exposes the evil master plan that BlackRock and the ruling elite have for cryptocurrency, from Bitcoin, Dogecoin, XRP, all of cryptocurrency. They have a plan to take it over. Let's hear what Whitney Webb has to say about that.
Government incompetence is the excuse. So I mean, just talking about like financial policy and stuff. I mean, I think it's easier to pick apart in those cases because you can see the obvious who benefits and who doesn't sometimes more easily, and they'll sort of be oh well, we just when the Fed printed a bunch of money during COVID and gave it to BlackRock to manage, was that incompetence? Especially when BlackRock wrote a plan at the end of 2019 of the monetary policy that the Fed followed exactly when COVID happened, about what the Fed would need to do during an unforeseen crisis. I mean, it's just was that incompetence or is that corruption? And so, I mean, a lot of times they try and absolve themselves of when they sort of get caught or start to get caught for something corrupt, they'll be oh, don't look any further, we're just really stupid, But if you consider just the massive amount of wealth transfer that's happened in the past 20 years to the people at the very top, obviously, well, I think it's obvious, but I mean, that can't all have been because of incompetence, and more has come out with COVID too, the safe and effective stuff about the vaccines. And I mean, a lot of people in alternative media knew it was experimental and that there wasn't enough testing and stuff, and they were censored, and then the stuff was forced on people through mandates and things like that. Was that incompetence? I mean, they knew then what a lot of people in alternative media knew then, they being, the people in charge, and they still put it through anyway. And now there's they're acting like it didn't happen,
We are all familiar with government incompetence, but it just seems crazy that most of the time that there's government incompetence, it just so happens to give more power to the ruling elites. As Whitney Webb says, it just happens to be that you have BlackRocks and these different funds that just happen to get all this power from the Federal Reserve right before COVID. Why is all of this happening? Why does it seem that these bad things always seem to hurt us and benefit the ruling elites when it comes to incompetence of the government? It just seems so shady.
Well, again, it all comes back to personal responsibility, because, I mean, ultimately, in general, what can you control? A lot of times you can only control what you do and how you react to things, right? So this coming push to regulate the internet and the destruction of the existing financial system to create this put in place. I've done a lot of reporting on the past including the simulations of the Wall Street banks, the central banks, and the big tech firms all together simulating a massive cyber attack on the financial system as the reason that this will all be brought in. Whether that's from the World Economic Forum itself or the Carnegie Endowment, which at the time was run by William Burns, who is now CIA director. Yeah, that's definitely stuff to pay attention to. But what if that kind of stuff happens? Well, going back to Argentina for a second, I know a lot of people from Argentina, their economy literally collapsed in 2001. What if those people said about, their advice in dealing with that kind of situation? Don't panic. Don't give in to the fear. Because if you're panicking, give in to the fear, you're not going to make good decisions. You're just not. There's a lot to be said about preparing, but a lot of that preparedness needs to be mental preparedness too, so you don't give in to the fear and panic. The reason they need these events to justify the implementation of these policies is so people are afraid, because people who are afraid are easily manipulated. Mm-hmm. And so that's very easy to handle. And it also makes it easier to handle if you talk to people in your family or in your, circle of friends or whatever about how stuff like this could happen. Try and prepare your base, you know what I mean, mentally. Even if you can't prepare physically and spend money to, buy food or whatever, But also as far as these efforts to regulate the internet, when the internet comes back as a regulated whatever, yeah, they'll be able to surveil everything you see, but a lot of content that's there now probably won't be there when it comes back. Yeah, now's a good time to load up some offline hard drives with all sorts of kinds of information that you may find useful in the future. No, I mean, I have a lot of like ebooks. I've got young kids, so lots of movies and stuff to watch. Books and video rips and stuff of like how to be self-sufficient. Certain skills I don't have now, but I might need in the future, like how-to stuff. Like you won't be able to just go to YouTube and be like, how do I do this? People have to start thinking about that kind of stuff and have an offline library of things, especially if you don't want to comply, because I won't be, with this whole, you need a digital ID to get onto the new internet. Like, I'm not going to do digital ID shit at all. I'm not. So if you want to resist that and not do it, you have to have a plan about how not to do it,
Are we absolutely fucked, Whitney?
I don't think so. I think it comes down to... No? Okay. I think some people will be, but it all depends on, how they decide to act now about these things, and how they decide to react to this information and these situations as they arise, So people that are like, I don't care, like, I can't control anything. And that includes people who like know everything, but are super like black-pilled about it. Like, obviously they're going to have a really bad time, The way to get out of this is to build alternative infrastructure to their infrastructure. And the time to start doing that is now. Why we can still use the internet as a tool for us, because like for a long time the internet has been a tool for the public, and that's part of the reason they feel the need to like regulate it and stick it so completely under their thumb. The mass democratization of information, for example, has been a huge issue for them. And this is why they're coming in now and trying to clamp down so much on the flow of information. Yeah. And why we can still use these things about the internet to our advantage. Stuff needs to be done. And this is why I think it's important, specifically in talking to like the Bitcoin community. There's a lot of talented developers there that can build out a lot of this alternative infrastructure. And there are people in the space working on that kind of stuff. But there needs to be more of it, And it can't just be like all this like macro bullish stuff of like, yeah, they say Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million. I think people need to get their head straight and be like, if Bitcoin is going to be a tool for financial freedom, and if I want the reasons I got into Bitcoin to still be Bitcoin in a few years, I need to think about how I can help that happen. Because they're coming for it, and they're going to turn it into something else unless people in the Bitcoin space start doing stuff. And that's not to say no one's doing anything, because people are, but there needs to be more awareness of this in the space, and people need to decide which camp they're in. And I think it needs to be culturally unpopular in the Bitcoin space to serve the co-opt agenda and make it a tool of Wall Street and global empire. You're either on the side of those guys, or you're on the side of freedom and the public. Yeah. And put your flag somewhere,
BlackRock and the other ruling elites in the government and these different funds clearly have an agenda to try and take over cryptocurrency. They want to manipulate us. They want to give us these different little wins. That way we feel like we're doing well. That way they can go ahead and say, wait a second, we need to control this and have some excuse. This is something that we need to fight against. We need to have our self-responsibility to fight against this. We need to protect things like XRP. The government went hard after XRP. They tried to say, this is a security, we're going to shut this down, because they wanted control. We have to continue to fight back against these different attacks that they have, whether it's against Bitcoin, whether it's against XRP, whether it's against Dogecoin. Once we let them have some wins when it comes to cryptocurrency, when they take an inch, they're going to take a mile.
The stakes are higher than they've arguably ever been, because if they manage to get the system in place because of the technology and what they hope to do to people, going as far as stuff like the brain chip and stuff, if it gets to that point, it becomes very hard to undo. And the implications for humans being able to live free lives is very much at stake, right? So this is the time to fight this. It's now. If you're in the Bitcoin space, they want to use Bitcoin to serve their ends, not the people's ends. That there needs to be awareness of that, and people need to make choices, and these discussions need to be had. It obviously happens that the value of Bitcoin has gone way up, and so now I have all this money. But at the same time, if Bitcoin's value goes to like $1 bazillion, one Bitcoin, that doesn't mean that like you're going to live like a gazillionaire because you have Bitcoin holdings. That's going to mean that the currency, the dollar, the pound, whatever, is being inflated to oblivion. It's like Zimbabwe and Venezuela. So you may be like, wow, I have millions of dollars, but your standard of living is probably going to be the same as it is now. And everyone around you that doesn't hold Bitcoin is going to drown.
Yeah, it's not nice.
So it's not necessarily a thing to cheer on. Yeah. So people need to stop getting googly-eyed about like, I might be a millionaire or a multimillionaire, you know, and start being like, I got into Bitcoin because this is a way to stick it to the banks who are ruining the financial system and our world. And I'm going to ensure that it does that. That's what needs to happen. People need to get their head in the game here. And it's not like, you know, oh, like let's get in the bunker and go to war necessarily. But like people need to be aware of this and that they need to have their head in the right spot for all the stuff that's to come. Because the Wall Street guys think they can buy off all the Bitcoiners by being like, look, you have all this money, join us. I mean, that's like Sith Empire shit. Like, don't fall for it. Well, I think they hope to buy people off that way in the Bitcoin space because they want to try and get Bitcoiners on their side. And, you know, I think there are probably people who are very influential in the Bitcoin space who are being used to herd people toward that. Influential voices. And ideally, the voices in the Bitcoin community with integrity will start talking about these issues sooner rather than later. Because if Bitcoin is financial freedom and you're going to say that, and it's not true in a few years, I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah.
It either is a tool of financial freedom or it's not, and now is the time to fight to keep it that way. If an event happens that seems really bad and they have a particular narrative about it, they're going to criminalize privacy and all of this stuff, and their solution is to end privacy. And please don't be naive enough to fall for that. You know, they've wanted that stuff for a long time. And every time these events happen, the state, the powers that be, whatever, come for a power grab. And they only get that power grab if we consent and go along with it and give in to the fear and the panic, and that has to be resisted.
Yes, we are all excited about the potential for cryptocurrency to change our lives, to have life-changing money from cryptocurrency, to see things like Bitcoin go to $1 million, see XRP go to $100, see these massive explosions in value. However, we need to question, when we see all this money that is flowing into cryptocurrency, where is it coming from? Why is it going in there? We're seeing this with the Bitcoin ETF, for an example. All this money that's coming in, but we need to ask ourselves, why is this happening? Because it's very, very possible what Whitney Webb's saying, where they could give us some massive gains. Maybe it's a 10x, 100x, whatever it is in our value. Then something happens, there's some kind of terrorist attack. Again, they constantly are pushing and saying cryptocurrency is used to fund terrorism. Even though that's not exactly accurate, it's used in a very, very small percentage to do that. Large-scale cryptocurrency is not used to fund terrorism, but they're going to push for that. They're going to say, yeah, you got your 100x gains. Don't you want to keep that? Because we need to stop these terrorists from destroying your cryptocurrency gains. That's what they're going to say to you. And so many people are going to go, well, please protect my 100x gains. Please protect my 10x gains. Do whatever you have to do to stop terrorism. Do whatever you have to do to keep this value that I gained. This is where we need to fight back against it, because once we let them have those wins, again, once we give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Now, if you want to hear more of Whitney Webb's amazing insights into these plans that these ruling elites have to try and control us and manipulate us, make sure to go ahead, subscribe down below, leave a comment letting me know why you appreciate Whitney Webb's thoughts or other people who you want to hear more from.